All right, you can make yourself a seat, make your way back to your seats. Well, good morning, church. Good morning to everyone who's watching online. Today is a all-in service, so we have some people from Hillsville here with us as well. And there are people that are actually watching online as well. I had a few people actually contact me during the week saying that they're actually down with the flu. And because of that, because of the infection that they have, they've decided to actually watch online. So for those of you who are watching online, we miss you in church, but we're trusting that God will actually bring you here next week. And then anyone else who's new to our broadcast, I don't know if you know, but we've actually changed how we broadcast. We now broadcast on multiple mediums. And so we broadcast through YouTube. We actually have our standard Facebook page, which is the general Facebook page. So we have two Facebook pages. We have a private one, and we have a general one. And so we broadcast on the general Facebook page as well. And Pastor Colleen and I have a ministry called Water Life Ministries International. And so our ministry page also has our sermons now. And so we are actually getting people watching it from all over the world. In actual fact, on New Year's Eve, I was invited, and I actually didn't get to do it because I was busy here. But I was invited by a pastor who has multiple churches globally, and he wanted me to address his congregations. So what we're starting to see is that we are reaching far and wide. And I'm sure that people like Sandy and Chris will be watching in Uganda as well. So we want to say hello to Sandy and Chris, the very daring Sandy and Chris. For those of you who've been watching the posts, you've seen that they've been playing with lions and snakes. I come from Africa, so I kind of like know what the dangers are and what the precautions are. So I'm sure that they were very, very safe. This morning, we want to go into the start of the new year. And when you start the new year, it's always good to actually start things that actually propel us and position us for success. I don't know about you, but I generally understand that people don't like to fail. Is there anyone here who likes to fail? Please put your hand up. All right, so no one, right? No takers in that. Which actually tells me that people don't want to fail. We all want to succeed. But we can only succeed if we do the right things. And I want to talk this morning on a sermon topic that is actually important to me, but I hope it'll be important to you. It's called Fresh Starts. And what fresh starts do is actually the following. A fresh start is not a restart. I want you to get to understand that. I don't want you to live out 2024 in 2025. That's what a restart is. A restart is, well, I didn't do so well last year, so I'll just restart my year this year, right? And I've got bad news for you. 2024 is over and done with. You might have had some successes, and you might have had some losses, but either way, it's over and done with. It's finished, it's klar, it's kaput for all of you. Yeah? What I do know is that a fresh start, like I said, if you actually go with a restart, what that really means is you're starting over again. You're starting with the same vision. You're starting with the same ideas and ideals. You're starting with the same level of expectation. That's what a restart is, okay? But when you actually talk about a fresh start is about starting something new. So you start up with a new vision. You start up with new expectations. And you continue on expecting new results and giving yourself the opportunity to succeed. Am I talking to some people here this morning who want to succeed? Am I talking to some people who are winners in the house of God? Am I talking to some people here this morning who will actually take and appropriate what I'm about to say and understand that by so doing, you can win? The great thing about Jesus is always been a winner. Yeah? And he always will be. Now, I can tell you that the world has been trying for the last 2,000 years to try and discredit him. The world has been trying to actually tell us that what we believe is wrong. But we understand that when the power and the presence of God moves, he is still alive. And we know that the one that we serve is alive. Talking about failure, does anyone know a person called Sir James Dyson? Yeah? Well, you might have a vacuum cleaner, or you might have a hairdryer, or a fan that's called a Dyson. Sir James Dyson failed 5,126 times in trying to create the vacuum cleaner. Over a period of 15 years. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that he kept going? Because if he didn't, you wouldn't have the Dyson. Anyone heard of a man called Thomas Edison? Wow, this is interesting. He was told by his teachers he was too stupid to learn anything. And yet we have over 1,000 patents from him, including the phonograph and electric lamps. Albert Einstein, he only spoke when he was 4 years old. Nowadays, if a child's not speaking around 2, people are worried. Yeah? He only spoke when he was 4 years old. He only read when he was 7 years old. His actual school and society considered him mentally handicapped. Yet his theories have defined society. Abraham Lincoln. Everyone know him? President of the United States. Abraham Lincoln left to go to war as a captain. And he returned from war as a private. What does that mean? It means he was so bad at being a captain that he got demoted. Right? He came back from war as a private. History tells us that he failed in many businesses. And several political endeavors of his failed. Yet, he went on to become the President of the United States. And this is what he said. My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. You have to excuse me this morning, something's in my throat. Who knows about Elvis Presley? Tell someone next to you what you know about Elvis Presley. I was very tempted on New Year's Eve to sing an Elvis Presley song. I could do Blue Suede Shoes, I could do Jailhouse Rock, I could do Love Me Tender. Elvis Presley did his first performance, and this is what the promoter said. You ain't going nowhere, son. You ought to go back to your truck and keep on driving. Well, we all know how wrong that was. But I also heard of this guy called Michael Jordan. Anyone heard of him? Yeah? I had the privilege of seeing him play. When I was living in Chicago, I used to go out to some of these games, and I had the privilege of seeing him play. His coach dropped him from high school basketball, saying he did not have enough talent. 6 championships and 5 MVPs later, it tells a different story. I know this guy who was excluded from the debating team, who was actually thrown out of speech and drama. And he was basically discounted for any leadership role. It was bad enough that he was disadvantaged because of the political system that he was growing up in, but he was also marginalized because Christians were a minority in his community. Yet he fought back hard. And in his fighting back and not accepting failure, he went on to captain the state soccer team in his country. He became the producer of multiple music and drama productions. He co-wrote and co-produced a Carolina Center show that actually raised $25,000 for charity. Anyone know who that is? Me. He's gone on together with his lovely wife. Notice I added the word lovely there. Together with his lovely wife to impact the lives of 700,000 people on a daily basis. He's become a leader in his field of technology, and he's been running his company for over 21 years. But the greatest joy that he has is being blessed to be able to lead Father's House Church with Pastor Colleen. The reason I put that in there is because I want you to know that when you fail, it's not fatal. When you fail, it's not the end of the world. Failure is only a failure if you don't learn anything from it. If you are prepared to learn something from it, then failure has been a lesson. And every one of us needs a lesson. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 13 and 14, it says the following. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider that I have made it on my own. Yet, one thing I do, forgetting, everyone listening? Forgetting what lies behind. Isn't it interesting? God never gave you eyes at the back of your head. Right? If you want to actually see what's behind, you actually have to be intentional to turn around to see what's behind. I believe God actually understood why he put our eyes in front. Forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. I press on to the goal to win the heavenly prize of the upward call of God in Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not a fan of making New Year's resolutions. But some of you may have. How are you going? Statistics tell me that within 3 days of people making resolutions, they break them. How are you going? I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions because I believe you can actually change your life and start your life anytime. You don't have to wait for a 31st of December experience for you to actually say it's time for change. Where you are right now, you can change your life. And I think it's important that you do that. You know, change comes to us in different times. In December, we would have been living in our house that we actually have purchased for 18 years. But that had to come with some change. The change was that we had to sell the house that we had. We had to move across the world. We had to come to another country and go through the traumatic experience of actually doing house visits with everyone else. I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy walking through houses when there's a whole lot of other people walking through houses too. But that seems like how they do it here. I'm not a fan of auctions. I remember going to an auction one day. I saw a beautiful house that needed to be renovated. And not knowing the housing market in Australia, I said to Colleen, I've got my checkbook in my pocket. I'm actually going out to this auction. I'm going to buy a house. Little did I know that when I went there were a lot of other people who actually had the same idea. So there we were, bidding. And I'm like, well, I won't bid yet. I'll sort of like wait. Yeah. So I had an idea in my heart, like, you know, I'd put in like $50,000 as a deposit bid, all right, because they were looking for deposits then. And so suddenly, I saw them go like 35,000, 40,000. I thought, oh, they're getting to my mark. So on your marks, get set. You know, they got to 50,000. I put my hand up. I thought, oh, well, I'm in now. You know, that meant that the house was going to sell for $1 million, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm in it. I think I'm going to get it. And all of a sudden, it went to 70,000. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a little bit more than I expected. And then it went to 80,000. I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to count myself out now. And by the time it finished, it was about 150,000. But I didn't remember telling Colleen, and I said, if God has a plan for us to own a house, he will miraculously give us a house. So let me say this to you. I was running a home group in my house when the agent called Colleen and said, the one house that you guys went out and had a look at, we're taking offers on that today. And they said, it's up to you if you want to put in an offer. I'm running a home group. Colleen comes out of the study, says, I have to speak to you. I'm looking at her and saying, can't you see I'm running a home group? And she says, we have to talk. So we go into the study. She tells me what he says. And I decide, well, why not? Let's just put in the most ridiculous offer. I said to Colleen, right now I can't be bothered trying to think through this. Let's just put in this offer. So we did. I'm 3/4 way through the home group. Colleen comes back. She says, I need to speak with you. I'm like, Colleen, this is the second time. 3 strikes and you're out. Anyway, Colleen then actually calls me, tells me what it is. She says, they like our offer. And then she said, thank you. She said, they like our offer. And then she said, but they asked if we could increase it a little. So here I am standing and looking at Colleen and thinking, well, how much more should I actually go? So Colleen and I both sort of said, well, we put in a ridiculous offer and they like it. Let's be ridiculous about our increase. So we put down another $3,000. And by the time I'd actually finished the home group, Colleen was smiling from ear to ear. Because the agent had actually called her and told her, you got the house. So what am I saying to you is that you would go some places and you might not get what you want, but you've got to actually stay the course, because as you do, God is faithful to give you what you need. And so we bought our house at a ridiculous price, and I can tell you that our house is probably worth almost 4 times what we paid for it. But that's not because I want to tell you that you should need to get into the housing market. That's a different seminar. We'll talk about that this year as well. We're going to talk about how we create wealth. But the first thing I want to talk about is, number 1, let go of the past. We are very bad at letting go. Husbands and wives, when you have arguments, you're very bad at letting go. And so am I. I'm not only speaking with you. If we have disagreements, we don't let go. We will actually talk about it. Every opportunity we get, we'll remind the other person how foolish they were, and we'll actually tell the other person that they've never apologized. A few people are smiling in the church today. Because we are bad at letting go. But in Philippians chapter 3, verse 13, it says, forgetting what is behind. I don't know about you, but forgetting means you never remember again. That's what forgetting means. It means you give up completely. And so if you want to have a successful 2025, the first thing that you got to do is forget what you did in 2024. You might be saying, but Calvin, if I remember what I did in 2024, I can do 2025 better. Do you know that sometimes remembering what you did or what you had holds you back from what God wants for you? Sometimes because you're actually sitting there holding on to the things that you think are precious to you, when God actually has something even more important and more precious to give to you. And so holding on to the past is not what he wants. You can reflect on past failures. Then it will also make you regret and say, I should have done that better. I could have responded better. I could have said something better. And even your successes can actually hold you back. Because you might think, I was really successful at that. I'm going to do that again this year. What you've got to understand, I'm in sales. One of the things that I've actually learned is the way you make a sale in one area or to one customer is never the way you make a sale to the next customer. Because circumstances have changed, people have changed, conditions have changed, all the dynamics have changed. And what you thought worked yesterday might not work today. So you've got to forget the past. The greatest thing that I remember, and I want you to remember, is God forgives and He renews. So no matter how your 2024 ended, understand that God is happy to forgive you. If you didn't actually achieve the things you wanted to in 2024, God forgives you. It's time you forgave yourself. Now, Isaiah chapter 43, verse 18 and 19, it says, see, I am doing a new thing. Right? See, I am doing a new thing. So you've got to open your eyes and perceive and understand that God is doing a new thing. But as long as you're looking at the past, you cannot see what God is trying to do. You can allow the past to hold you in chains. Anyone remember that song, My Chains Are Gone? I've been set free. Well, I actually had the unfortunate experience of actually being in Sudan during the height of the war between Sudan and South Sudan. It was a time when the South Sudanese were taken as prisoners and as slaves by the Sudanese. And I remember walking through some villages where there were men in shackles. When you value freedom and when you expect and understand freedom, you understand that when people are in shackles, they're not free. A few of us got together, a few churches here locally, and a few churches internationally. We got together and started raising money because all it cost to free a slave was $100. And I remember being there as we were paying over the $100 and seeing these men released and them coming to us thinking that we were now their slave masters. And then coming to us as a whole group of men and pastors there and saying, so what would you like us to do? And our response was, the shackles are off. Find your way home. Have a good life. And they were looking at us thinking, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And we said, because we value freedom. And so as long as you have chains, chains will hold you down. We've seen animals in chains. And by the way, I don't agree with that. I'll just put it out there right now. I don't agree with that. I don't believe that we should be manipulating. I know there's things like for protection and so forth. But have you heard the story about the elephant that was chained to a pole? Have you ever heard that story? There was an elephant who was chained to a circus pole for many, many years. And after about 20 years of actually performing in the circus, the elephant was actually then sent to a zoo. And when the elephant got to the zoo, they had unshackled the elephant so that the chain around the elephant's leg was now open. But the elephant had now already memorized that when they walked forward, they could walk forward 4 steps, and then the chain will hold them back from going any further. And even though this elephant did not have the chain on its leg, this elephant will only walk 4 steps forward and then walk back to the point where it was. And that's because of the conditioning that it had. Our experiences actually condition us. Our experiences actually hold us back. Our experiences tell us certain things are not possible. Did you know it was impossible to run the mile in under, anyone know? 4 minutes. Did you know that in trying to get runners to run the mile in under 4 minutes, they would put wild animals behind the runners and tell them, if you can outrun this animal, you will do it in under 4 minutes, and no one did. Until that time, a man came along called Roger Bannister. Everyone know him? Everyone told him it's impossible. Everyone told him it can never be done. Roger Bannister arrives on the scene, decides that he's going to give it a go. And Roger Bannister becomes the first man in history to run the mile in under 4 minutes. You know what that did? It actually created belief in 25 other runners. Because in the next 12 months, 25 other runners ran the mile in under 4 minutes. So I preach a sermon, which I'm going to preach in this church this year, called Nothing is Impossible. It's only impossible because it's not been done yet. So in our church, we're not going to be held back by the past. We're going to look forward. And so my second point is press forward with purpose. Everyone needs purpose. Philippians chapter 3 verse 13 says, straining forward to what is ahead. It is important that we put spiritual goals in our lives. And that's why as a church we are studying the New Testament over the next 12 months. It is important for us to understand the life and times of Jesus. And that is why we'll be spending time studying the New Testament. But in our reading plan, I don't want you to rush through your reading. We are only doing like one chapter a day. Okay? Now you might think, oh, why one chapter? Can I ask you, have you really studied the chapter? When you get to Matthew, have you got your Bibles? Yeah? Can somebody go to Matthew chapter 4, verse 4? What does Matthew chapter 4, verse 4 say? It is written. Yeah? Am I right? What does it say? It is written. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Now, if you are reading without purpose, if you are reading because you're trying to finish the verse, you will say, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone except for every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Hey, I'm done. Matthew 4:4 is finished. But if you are truly studying Matthew 4:4, you'll stop and say, it is written. What is it? Why was it written? Do I need to have it written? Now you're starting to do a Bible study on one verse. And then you start working out, well, when it says it is written means that the declaration of what Christ is about to say, he's saying has already been foretold. Why is it written? Because most of us can't remember a lot of things. So, it is written so that we can refer to it. Now, the next thing we should do is say, if it is written, where is it written? Yeah? So go and find out where is it written. Go and find out who wrote it. Go and find out why they wrote it. Now you're doing Bible study. Yeah? Because most of you are doing Bible study by paraphrasing the verse. And that's my Bible study. Yes, Pastor, I've read the whole chapter. I'm up to date. But that's not our plan. Our plan is moving forward with purpose. And if we're moving forward with purpose in reading the New Testament, we need to understand what the New Testament is saying. And we go on with that verse, saying, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone. Why did they choose bread? Why didn't they choose, I'm an African boy, I like meat. Right? Why didn't they choose meat? Well, because I've got to understand the context of the verse. Because in the context, bread was a required food substance. It was required. It was their common food substance. Wherever they met, whenever they met, they actually offered bread to each other. Do you know that in any Jewish house, it was an abomination, it was a curse to run out of bread? Did you know that? If your neighbor came asking you for bread and you could not give them bread, there's a Bible verse, right? It says if your neighbor comes and knocks on your door and asks you for bread and you cannot give them bread, what it's actually saying is you should never be running out of bread. Because if you have run out of bread, you are doing a disservice to your neighbor. So in the same way, if you are running forward with purpose, the things that you're actually pushing forward with, you should never run out of steam. You should actually pace yourself in such a way that you can achieve the things that you want to achieve. We are setting spiritual goals here at FHC. And some of the goals that we are setting for this year is, and I'm going to declare it this morning. I don't know about you. I said it in the prayer meeting earlier on, for those of you who weren't here. we will be having a testimony wall come up at FHC. A wall of testimonies. How many people here, just by a show of hands, have actually, in 2024, have had God answer a prayer? Yeah? Well, then my wall's full for 2024. Yeah? Now imagine what God can do in 2025. I don't know about you, but I'm believing you're going to get ready for this, because this is the time that you should get excited, and this is the time you should say amen. Because we are going to believe God that people are going to get healed in this place in 2025. We are going to believe God that people are going to get new jobs in 2025. We are trusting God that God is going to actually bring increase into the house in numbers and in spiritual maturity. We are believing that during the times of service, God is going to move so powerfully that there are going to be people on the floor all over the building. We are believing that God is going to move so powerfully that people are going to walk in here with wheelchairs and crutches, and they're going to leave carrying their stuff back home. We are going to trust God that He's going to do some great and mighty things. We don't have to be theatrical. We don't have to be anything else but just servants of God. Because I believe in one specific thing. In the Lord's Prayer, when He was teaching them to pray, did Jesus say, first put on your best white suit? Some of you know who I'm talking about. Did Jesus ever say, make sure that you have the best cologne? Did He ever say, make sure you have the best shoes on? No. Did He say, well, you stand in a certain way? Or you actually you adopt a certain position so the devil knows you are in charge? It's nothing like that. He said, in my name. That's what He said. He said, in my name. Right? When He sent them out, what did He say? Go and cast out demons in my name. Right? He didn't say go and entertain demons. One of the things that Pastor Colleen and I have learned is when we're dealing with demon possession cases, we don't entertain demons, we just tell them to go. If there's sickness in someone, we actually just speak to the sickness and ask the sickness to go. Because according to the Lord's Prayer, it says, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And the reason most of us don't actually appropriate that is because we don't know what God's will is. I heard people pray this. Lord, if it is your will. Now, sometimes you're not sure. I can go with that. But if you really are connected into the throne room of God, you should know the will of God. It's the will of God that you do not have sickness on your body. Your body was never created to carry sickness. So in 2025, make it your spiritual posture and your purpose not to carry sickness. Yeah, I know some of us have got a bit of a cold and we got a cough and so forth. But we will declare healing over our bodies because we believe that God is our healer. Am I speaking to some people here today who know that God's their healer? Am I speaking to some people here today who've seen the power of God demonstrated through healing? Yeah, I have actually been all over the world, and I can tell you that everywhere in every country that Colleen and I have been in, we've seen healing. Not a single country that we've been in that we have not seen healing. Yesterday, I was looking at the map of the world. And I was looking at all the countries we've been in. And I was thinking, wow, God, you've been so faithful. You've been so faithful. You've taken us to so many countries. And then God reminded me. And He said, in every one of those countries, you saw a miracle. And I said, yes, Lord. And then He said, what's wrong with your country? And I said, nothing. In fact, God, I said, everything's wrong with it. This is what I said. I said, God, everything's wrong. I said, people are so affluent, they don't need you, God. People are so affluent, they've got everything that they need. They don't come for prayer. And then God said, I want you to move mountains. And I'm like, how does that work, God? He said, you don't negotiate with the mountain. You don't convince the mountain. You say, in my name, go. And in the name of Jesus, your mountains move. And too often, we spend too much of time glorifying our mountains by speaking about our mountains rather than speaking about the one who can move the mountain. And it's time that in 2025, if we want to press forward with purpose, we need to speak about the one who's the mountain mover rather than the mountain in front of us. Because too many times we glorify the things that should not be glorified. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 to 2 will come up. Therefore, since we are surrounded, you're not alone. Can I just quickly teach Bible here this morning? Because we are surrounded, which means that don't think that you're just one person trying to do this. Listen to what it says. By so great a cloud of witnesses. What does this tell me? This tells me there's people who've gone before me who have actually done what I should be doing. Right? You're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses who by faith have testified to the truth of God's absolute faithfulness. Who are some of these witnesses? Your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt. But get on, into more spiritual things. Moses, Gideon, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They are the cloud of witnesses that are looking at you and saying, hey, you're telling my story. What's your story? Imagine you go to heaven one day and you walk in through to heaven, and I'm hoping that most of you get to heaven. In fact, I'm hoping all of you get to heaven. Because if you're not going to make it to heaven, come and see me. I'll tell you how to get to heaven. Yeah? The Bible says there's only one way into heaven, and that is through Jesus Christ. Acknowledging him as Lord and Savior of your life. And so if you accept him as Jesus and Lord and Savior of your life, you are assured you're going to heaven. You don't have to do any more good works. You don't have to do anything else. It says, stripping off every unnecessary weight. What are some of the unnecessary weights you're carrying? Anger, fear, disappointment, envy, hurt. If those things are actually on you, you will never run your race well. Yeah? Have you ever seen someone go? We have a great 100-meter sprinter. I hope you guys are following him. I spoke about him the other day. We have a great 100-meter sprinter in Australia now, right, from Brisbane. If you watch him run, he runs with the minimal amount of clothes possible. He runs with the short shorts, and he runs with a vest. I don't see him running with a weight belt. See, the weight belt has its purpose. The weight belt is required when you actually go underwater. Unfortunately for Pastor Colleen, when she goes underwater and she has a weight belt, she still floats. A few years ago, we were up in Cairns, and we actually went to do that, that seabed walk to actually be with the fish. And they put the weight belt on Pastor Colleen. She actually went down underwater, and all of a sudden she popped up above water. So they had to put a higher weight belt on her. And every sin that so easily and cleverly entangles us. And let us run with endurance and active persistence the race that is set before us. Looking away from all that will distract us. Focusing our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and perfecter of our faith. The first incentive for our belief, and the one who brings us our faith to maturity. Who for the joy. Some of you are saying, well, it's not really joyous. When I'm running and my calves are aching and my body is paining and I'm still running the race and I'm still being faithful, it's not joyous. It says, for the accomplishment of the goal set before him, he endured the cross, disregarding the shame, and sat at the right hand of the throne of God, revealing his deity, his authority, and the completion of his work. You see, when the joy comes in is when you complete your race. So most of you are saying, well, it's not joyous while I'm arduously following God and I'm doing the things that he's asking me to do. But I want you to know that the day you actually arrive in heaven, you are going to hear these words. And this is the only time the word well done should be used, never with stakes. Well done, true and faithful servant. Remember I told you one day, I'm not preaching pie in the sky here. I'm preaching steak by the lake. Did you hear? Anyone remember that? Yeah? I'm giving you substance here, things that you can actually hold on to. Press forward with purpose. The world tells you that you are successful by their standards. Has anyone told you what is success? Have you asked someone what is success? Have you asked someone what is success? You know what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you their definition of success. I've got news for you. I'm going to liberate you this morning. I'm going to free you this morning. I'm going to take the shackles off you this morning. Their definition of success is not your definition of success. Because according to the Bible, some people have already gone before us and have heard the word, well done, true and faithful servant. They've succeeded. They've already made it into the throne room of God. Does that mean that you have not succeeded? No. It means you're still running your race. And your success will come in time. So when somebody says to you, what's success? Somebody might say, well, success is having $1 million in the bank. I read something which really blew my mind 2 weeks ago. 1 in 3 Australians is a millionaire. You're looking at me saying, but Pastor, I've only got $5 in my bank account. That is the truth. Because they have now looked at the price of property in Australia, and they've looked at the portfolio of property in Australia, and essentially what they're saying is the property that we actually hold in Australia makes us millionaires straight away. Think about your home. I told you we bought a home, it's worth 4 times what it was when we bought it. That's made us a millionaire. I don't have the million in the bank, but in value, I'm a millionaire. Is that success? Absolutely. When you're speaking to a child in Uganda, that's success. But some of you are seated here today thinking, well, no, that's not success. Well, success is individualized. You've got to look at it for yourself and say, am I successful? You might only lead one person to Christ, but that could be success for you. Whereas someone else could lead 100 people to Christ. It does not mean they're more successful. I would love to meet the person who led Billy Graham to Christ. How successful are they? Sometimes we're looking at numbers rather than impact. Success is not only by that. In order for us to actually be successful, there's going to have to be some pruning. Those are what I call those ouch moments. You know, I was ruthless the other day in my garden. I bought this pair of snippers. You know, no, not snippers. Actually, they're those big shear kind of things, right? And I just walked in the garden. I said to myself, I'm going to tell this garden who's boss. I walked in. I looked at a tree that was actually growing out of, like crazy, blocking out the light. I went to the bottom of the tree and I said, let me show you who's boss. And I just took that and yeah. Out it goes. For me, that was success. Because if you come to my garden, you might think, no, that was no success. There's still a lot more trees that you have to take out. But I'll do that in time. But what I'm saying to you is success must be individualized. 5 regrets of people as they die. Regret number 1. I wish I had the courage to I wish I had the courage to live a life that was actually true to myself. Because if you're living your life because you're trying to please someone else, it's going to be hard work. It's going to be traumatic, and it's going to be tiring. But if you live your life to make yourself happy and to actually bless the name of God, you've succeeded. Second regret. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. How many of you know you're working hard? Yeah, we all work hard, right? Some of us work hard on the golf course. Some of us, sorry, George, you put your hand up, so I just thought I'm going to have to say that. Yeah, that's still work, yes. 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 In fact, do you know that while you're sitting on those chairs, you're actually working? Because Newton said work is the transference of energy. Yep. So every one of us is working, but one of the regrets is I shouldn't have worked so hard. Another one, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. A fourth one, I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends and family. And the fifth one, I wish I let myself be happier. Who wants to live in regret? Because if you're pushing forward with purpose, when you have purpose, you can't have regret. When something goes wrong, you actually push ahead and say, I know it's going to get better. And you push forward. The final thing that I want to talk about is trusting God for the journey. Because it's important that we trust Him. That's why in Philippians chapter 3, verse 14, it says, I press on, which means I push forward. I go against what I feel and what I think, and I win. God is faithful. Pastor Colleen stole my verse this morning, but I'm going to bring it up again. It's amazing that we didn't talk about this, and yet she did steal my verse anyway. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord and rely confidently on the Lord with all your heart. And do not rely on your own insight or understanding. How many of you know that you know better than God? How many times have you told God, and said, God, let me tell you what I want you to do? Or how many times has God actually done something and you said, God, if you only knew what I wanted? Most of us want to actually serve God, but only as advisors. We want to tell Him what He should be doing. It says there, in all your ways, know and acknowledge and recognize Him, and He will make your path straight and smooth, removing obstacles that block the way. How many of you are gardeners here? How many of you like to plant things? I'm not asking about how many of you like to kill things, because that's also goes with that. Right? I got a friend who's actually a winemaker in the Yarra Valley. And he will tell you that in order to actually grow good wine, you need good soil, you need good nutrients. There's a whole lot of things. I'm not going to talk about that today. But what I want to talk about, how many of you planted a seed? Yeah? You know the trick about planting a seed? Anyone know what's the greatest trick about planting a seed if you want it to grow? Okay, someone's saying watering. Right? Fertilizer. Soil. Sunlight. Those are all requirements for the seed to grow. You know what is the biggest trick for planting a seed and wanting it to grow? Is never unearthing the seed before it grows. Have you seen a farmer go and plant a seed and go home to bed? He's done the watering, he's done the nutrients, he's done everything. Does he come back tomorrow morning and dig it up and say, oh, I just wanted to see if you're growing. Come on, I'm talking to you nicely. Most people talk. You talk to your plants? Anyone here talk to your plants? Yeah, there are a couple of people here. Okay, so he doesn't do that. In day number 3, he doesn't come and dig it up because he knows that if he constantly disturbs what God is doing or what's happening under the soil, he will kill the potential and the destiny of the seed. So why is it okay when God says to us, I have destiny for you, I have things for you to do, that we, after day 1, want to undig it and say, is it growing? Is it happening? Why aren't we so trusting and faith and understanding that if God said He's going to do it, He will do it? I just got to keep watering. I got to keep planting. I got to keep putting nutrients. I've got to keep trusting that the sunlight will actually come. You don't have no control over sunlight. Except if you're the MCG. When they put the fake lights on the grass so that it can actually grow. It's going to require you to have some faith And faith is trust. You need to trust that God is going to lead you through 2025 into something bigger. And so I'm going to actually start to close up there. But I'm going to tell you, I want to do something that I've probably done once before. And I'm going to do it this morning. Ben, can you come and help me? Can you actually just get everyone here to grab a page? Andrew, if you could do the other side for me. Thank you. If you've got a pen, there's two sides to this piece of paper. And this is what I want you to do. And for those of you watching online, you could do that as well. When you get this piece of paper and you got your pen, I want you to do the following. On the first side of the paper, write down something that you want to truly let go in 2025. Just write down there what you want to let go in 2025 on the first side of the paper. Now, if you want, you can flip the paper over, or you can get a second piece of paper. That's up to you. And what I want you to write on that side of the paper is what you really want to achieve in 2025. And for those of you who are watching online, what we're basically going to do next is we're going to get them to bring that up to the altar, and we're going to pray. But for you at home, you can pray over that as well and ask God to lead that, because God will put in your mind exactly what he wants you to do. So thank you for joining us online. God bless you. Have a great Sunday.